welcome back to the Cinema Condition with your host, filmmaker, and creator of the Nerdcore Podcast Network, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. And as always, we are back for another movie with another guest. And today, I am inviting a past guest onto the show. Of course, you've seen her. Well, you've seen her. You've never seen her unless you watched the Nerdcore live show. But you have heard her before on this podcast. She came on the first time to discuss man. Okay, Takashi Miike's audition. I'm not gonna start over, but Takashi Miike's audition, and then she came back for Park Chan-wook's The Handmaiden, and today she is back, and that is Leah Byrnes to discuss 2018's Hereditary, the directorial debut of Ari Aster. Welcome back, Leah, to the Cinema Condition. I'm sorry that we had to do 3 takes.
That's fine. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. A lot has changed since the last time that Leia was here. She started streaming. She started playing a lot of Animal Crossing. So I'm really happy about that. I've been able to pop in her streams every now and then. Most of the time it's when Ayden is there, and I don't know if that's a coincidence or it's just telepathic powers between us two. But yeah.
It's probably telepathic powers, honestly.
Yeah. But I'm really happy to have you back. I missed you a lot.
Missed you too.
Yeah. Of course, every time we come back, we usually get movies with castration anxiety, or they're horror films, or they're just movies that we find that are found to be so hot by the public that they get us 2,000 views on YouTube. So,
Oh yeah.
what's it called? Leia's my good luck charm now.
Yeah, we're the dream team.
We are the dream team. But what have you been what have you been up to during the quarantine?
Well, as you already said, I started streaming video games, so I've just been doing that and getting ready for graduate school, which starts in 2 months. So pretty excited for that.
Yeah. Is that going to be online for you, or you actually have to go in person?
When I registered, they still wanted to do in-person classes, but they might change that. So we're gonna find out.
Yeah, pandemic is definitely changing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the choice between like in-person classes on certain days, and then it's all online on the other days, or strictly online, or with a what's it called, like everything is posted for you, or like a live streamed online version of the class. But
Yeah, I would love if they just did live stream versions of all the classes. Like, I feel like that'd be much better.
Do them on Twitch so you can donate bits to your professor or something.
Yeah.
Oh man, just have the Streamlabs robot in the back come up like, "Fuck, professor, you look really good today. Well, how are you doing? Yes, here are some money. Bang, bang, bang. Woo, woo, woo. Hello, hello, hello. Am I done with my quick characters yet? No, I am not. Hi, class. Hope everyone's okay."
Yeah, I think that would work pretty well.
Yeah, it would, huh? It would. But no, I'm glad you're doing all right, and I'm glad that I got you back. This isn't the last time the Leia will be back. We are going to... So, I have to kind of preface this and say that, yes, this was supposed to be the Blade Runner episode with Julia, but a cyclone hit Brazil, and her internet tower by her home was it was brought down. Like it got torn down by the cyclone.
Dang.
So there's internet issues. So Julia was nice enough. I was nice enough to grant Julia a switcheroo with Leia here. So instead of Hereditary having to be next week, we are doing Hereditary today. And then next week will be Blade Runner. And then the week after that, Leia will be back to do Midsummer with us. Which honestly works out more in our favor because Leia didn't... I was like, yo, we're going to have back-to-back episodes. So that's back-to-back having to find a date. And also you got to watch the movies like in the span of a week as well.
I mean, that's fine. I watch so much TV every day. Like,
yeah,
it's fine.
I'm at 128 movies now I've watched in the whole year, and 3 series. So, as you can tell, I have no problem with having to watch movies. And I still got to watch another. I got to watch Memento tonight for the review tomorrow. And I also have to watch the the Brazilian Western film that came out last year. This year was released to the United States, Bacurau, which I rented. So I got a lot of stuff to watch before I kind of go to bed tonight.
Well, I believe in you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Make a podcast, they said. It's not anything difficult, they said, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but it's okay. It's okay. But I do want to say, what's it called? We are recording on July 6th on this Monday afternoon. And today we were met with the news that the maestro himself, one of the greatest composers to ever live, and my favorite composer ever, the amazing Ennio Morricone, has passed away at the age of 91. And if you never knew the work of Ennio Morricone, you probably heard his work in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, A Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More, Cinema Paradiso, The Hateful Eight, Django Unchained. I mean, the list goes on and on. The Thing, that's one of my favorites of his scores.
I
For
love the thing.
John Carpenter's The Thing. So Ennio Morricone has departed this earth, and he's gone to wherever the incredible artists of our times go after they die. And it was quite the news. I woke up, and then Brad sends me the what's it called, the message, and I'm like, son of a fucking bitch, 2020. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You took away Ennio from us. So I'm probably going to be rewatching Cinema Paradiso soon. I mean, I have it right here in front of me. It's in front of me because I have all my stack of Blu-rays right now on top of my PS4, which isn't probably the best decision. I don't know if that's good, but I have a lot of Blu-rays on my PS4. But I wanted to bring that up because, Ennio was a big part of not just cinema, but kind of traversing, kind of this blend of the importance of a score. Like you could listen to a score and you didn't know that it was Ennio's, and once you heard those specific notes that he always does, it's like, oh shit, yeah, this was a Morricone score. But Leah, I don't know if you're a big fan of scores as I am, but I know you love The Thing, so I just wanted to bring that up.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know about that. I literally just woke up like right before recording. So
Yep. So chances are I'm going to be rewatching Cinema Paradiso soon, and I'm going to be crying like a bitch, but it's all good because that movie always makes you cry. So we are going to get ready here. So Leah only chose one movie for this podcast. That was Audition. All these three, dude, the elotero isn't outside going through the streets selling elote, and that just absolutely distracted me. Leia only, wow, that's just great. Leia only chose Audition for this show, and I chose the other three movies that I wanted to discuss with her. I wanted to because I loved that Leia and I were pretty much the only ones on Horror Month that enjoyed Hereditary and loved it. And I thought, there's a lot of important themes in here that I kind of want to discuss, in a broader aspect. So I said, I'll put her for this one too, and I decided to get Midsummer as well because, of course, I wanted to get her thoughts on that too. Another really important themes in that movie as well. But I know you don't mind, but she is the most. She has the most slots in this whole season, which probably means she's getting brought down to at least 2 or 3 next season. So
yeah, that's fine.
you were also snagged Portrait of a Lady on Fire Under Your Feet by Alex. So she
okay.
She got you there.
I got the other lesbian movies, so we're fine.
Ginger snaps, yes. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about Hereditary. But as always, we have never talked about Ari Aster on this podcast. So we got to bring him up and we got to introduce him to you guys. So, Ari Aster was born on July 15, 1986, and he is a filmmaker and screenwriter. His first short film was The Tale of Two Tims, which he wrote at the College of Santa Fe and submitted to the American Film Institute. So, it garnered him a fellowship, and he would go and do all that stuff at the conservatory. So then he would make a comedic short with his friends, his industry friends, called TDF Really Works. And of course, then Aster would, create his thesis film, short, that would, break him out. And that was the strange thing about the Johnsons, which if you've never seen it, tell you right now, that's quite a short. And that,
I got recommended to watch it, but I haven't watched it yet.
yeah, it's about an abusive, incestuous relationship between a father and a son.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was his thesis film, of course, and he premiered it at what's it called? What's it called? He premiered it at the God damn it, Slam. I was gonna say Sundance. That's Slam Dance Film Festival in Utah, and but it leaked it online. It got leaked online, and now you can find it on YouTube. And of course, this would all kind of lead up to in 2018 him releasing this film. And this would be his feature film debut with A24. And of course, he would then work again with A24 for 2019's Midsummer. And now he is working on a 4-hour nightmare comedy with, I believe, A24 again. So, yeah, that's crazy, man. But, he has a lot of influences. Of course, some of the films that he's kind of talked about being his influences were Rosemary's Baby, Fanny and Alexander, Persona, A Matter of Life and Death, The Thing, 45 Years, A Brighter Summer Day, The Age of Innocence, In the Mouth of Madness, The Piano Teacher, 8.5, and Repulsion. And he's also brought out, Come and See, and a lot of other Russian films as being very big influences to his work. But mostly his main influence is the same influence as Ayden, which makes me wonder why he doesn't like the guy at all. But Ingmar Bergman's cinema is one of his biggest influences. But that is the filmmaker known as Ari Aster, and I'm checking no actual awards or anything. I believe Midsummer won a what's it called, Independent Spirit Award, but it doesn't actually bring it up here. Somebody needs to update the wiki page, guys. But yeah, that is Ari Aster, and so I can't ask you why did you choose Hereditary, but I'll ask you why did you agree to do a Hereditary with me, Leah?
I mean, I love Hereditary. I saw it when it first came out in theaters, and I never go to the theaters. I don't like going to the theaters. I just hate being around people. But
yeah, now after this, you're definitely not going back to the theater.
Yeah, never again. But yeah, I was actually lucky enough to catch it in theaters, and it just blew me away. And it's hard to believe that it only came out 2 years ago, because I've watched it so many times in that time span. I'm just like, damn, I've watched it 10, 15 times within 2 years, but it's just really good. And the story's just always stuck with me. Every time I watch it, I discover something new, which is something that I look for, in the movies that I enjoy. I want to be surprised every time, So, yeah, I don't know. It's just really good. Fucking good.
Oh, it's an incredible movie. Was one of my favorites of 2018. And I gotta say, it's also one of my favorite directorial debuts. I mean, even Scorsese talked about how this was usually your first feature film, you don't really have a sense of control over all the aspects of filmmaking. And here Aster really seems to get it down. He knows what he has to do. And he's kind of being symbiotically working with everybody on his cast and crew really well to get these performances, get these camera movements and all that stuff. So if you guys did not know, of course, this was a directorial debut. Of course, it was on a budget of $10 million. That's wow. That's for what you see in this movie. That's crazy for $10 million. But
yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah, it looks fucking great. So it's just funny how Ayden always has to come back out with this. Because Aiden was like, oh, some of the coloring was not done right. And like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't see it, dude. I don't fucking see
Ayden is a purist. He always has been.
it. Yeah.
He has very high standards.
Yeah. I'm a purist in a way too, but I just can't fucking, you know, I can't fucking, what's it called, deny that I love this movie so much. And I think that it brings up a lot of really important themes and just the whole story behind this. So,
Exactly. I always am looking more for a good story rather than something that's cinematically beautiful. Like
mhm.
a lot of my favorite movies, I can like acknowledge that they're kind of trashy the way they're shot. Like they're not exactly beautiful, but the
Yeah.
story is good. And so that's what
Yeah.
I'm about. But I'm also not
Mhm.
like a film major or whatever. Like I was all about English, so
Yeah.
I always prioritize story over then
Yeah. Well, you're
everything
one of my
else.
you're one of my favorite cinephiles because you're more into the thematic analysis of film.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
it if you were given the chance to write a book about, what's it called, film and the analysis of film, or to write a script that would be bought instantly, I feel you go directly to the book because you
Mhm.
enjoy more about the thematic analysis than you do, having to create, film.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hereditary is a family drama that includes the cast of course, Toni Collette in one of her best performances that should have been nominated. And it also features Alex Wolff, Millie Shapiro, and Gabriel Byrne. The film is about a family that just loses their matriarch in their family, their grandmother, and as they maneuver the loss and the grief in the family, other events transpire, and it leads to a satanic plot that happens halfway through the film, and we find out some scary, scary secrets about about the grandmother's past. And that is Hereditary, of course, released in January 21st, 2018, at the midnight section of 2018 Sundance Film Festival. And what's it called? They made over 80 million on a 10 million budget, and it has become one of the highest grossing films from A24. So take that with what you need. I don't really care about the money, but
Yeah, me either.
yeah. I just
Still impressive though.
yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, that's what got Aster to do Midsummer. I mean, they were like, oh, you just made
Yeah.
a shit ton of money, dude. Uh, so might as well get you another movie in here. But yeah, it's this movie. It brings up a lot of really interesting themes. I mean, you have the whole persisting theme of grief and loss throughout the film. You also have, the what's it called, the mental illness part of this film that gets discussed at great lengths. There's a lot going on in here that kind of make it a really interesting film to analyze. And this was my third time watching this film, I believe, or fourth. I've lost track at this time, but yeah,
Nice.
it doesn't change. It does not change a rating. I think it's still a 5-star film. Maybe not
Yeah,
entirely
I love
perfect,
it.
but it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched it like 10 times and I don't get bored of it any like
Yeah.
time I watch it, and I'll find like at least one new thing. Like I was like, "Oh, I don't have to take any notes. I've seen this movie so many times," and I still wrote 5 whole pages of like new notes, and I'm like,
Hmm.
"Okay, guess there is more in there."
Was there anything that you noticed this time around that you didn't see on the last one? Because I noticed when Toni Collette is what's it called, surfing through the photo album. Yo, I saw the history teacher in one of those pictures with the grandma.
Oh, I didn't actually notice that. I just
Yeah,
am always like, "Okay, old people, old
yeah.
people."
I looked back and I was like, whoa, 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 hold on, bro. I was like, yo, that's the history teacher.
That makes what the history teacher talks about in class even more ominous, I feel.
Yeah. I was like, yo, and I was like, whoa, that's the history teacher. Like that was like I had to rewind. I was like, yo, am I seeing this right? Yeah, that's the fucking history teacher, man.
That's amazing. I'm gonna have to go like check that out.
Yeah. Uh, but anything that you caught on this time around?
Well, usually when I rewatch it, I focus a lot on the demon lore because I always just find that really interesting. So this time I tried to focus more on like the mental illness and trauma. And like one thing that just always like I don't know. One thing that usually sticks with me is like looking at like, how Tony Collette's like brother like died with like his mental illnesses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I always forgot about the mental illnesses like her mom and her dad also had. And so I was just kind of
Mm-hmm.
looking more into that and thinking about like, is it real mental illness? Is it weird demon shit? And then just like looking more into the free will aspect of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was a really interesting part in there because and that's also one of my favorite scenes in the film. I think it's that whole, the what kind of grief anonymous? I don't know what it is. It's like
Yeah,
support group.
basically.
Yeah, it's like a support group, and God, that scene is amazing to me. I really like
I
that
love
scene.
that scene.
Yeah,
It was chilling the first time I watched it just because there's like tons of mental health issues in my family. So I'm like, oh, cool.
yeah,
Great.
yeah. Same with
Sweating
mine.
now.
Same with mine, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of like what my family is, and I mean,
Yeah.
it literally goes into the title of this film that mental illness is hereditary.
Hereditary. Yep.
Yeah,
That's the scariest part of this movie
yeah,
to me is just
yeah.
the mental illness portion of it. I don't believe in any demon shit. I just think it's cool. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't really believe in it, but I think it's interesting as
yeah.
shit. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started here. Did you wanna let's just go in straightforward with the mental illness part, and then we can just kind of maneuver other stuff, and we'll go ahead and start there. Is that fine with you?
Yeah, why don't you start off? Because my notes are kind of all over the place, so it'll
Yeah.
give me like time to find stuff.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, I don't want to what's it called to start like with the easiest stuff like grief and trauma, but I do think that that one of the biggest aspects of this film, and it's something that I've talked about at a greater length in just what it is, but it's something that I've noticed, not in just this film, but Aster's second film, which would be Midsummer, that we'll talk about in 2 weeks. But the whole idea of generational trauma and how that's passed on in this film, at least, from women to women. So it's so first of all, yes, the mental illness is hereditary, but the trauma seems to be, passed on from generation to generation. I mean, the grandmother passes it on to the brother. The brother passes it on to the sister. Not the grandmother. I'm sorry. Yeah, the grandmother passes it on to his daughter, to her son, then to the daughter, and Toni Collette, and then Toni Collette is kind of passing it on herself to to Alex Wolff's character, and in a way, I think I analyze it in the sense of wanting these hosts for payment. To me, in a sense, it is the passing of trauma onto these different people. And when you find a body as they want, a healthy body, one that hasn't been through quite the amount of trauma that Toni Collette's character has, you're kind of finding a body that's that not entirely healthy, but it's enough that you can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah. And I was gonna say, I mean, it's such an interesting topic about generational trauma. I talk about a lot about it when people ask me about being Latino in this country, and I tell them like I don't carry just my family's trauma. I also carry my ancestors' trauma and everything that's kind of happened before, and it's kind of stuff that we carry. And the grandmother kind of carries the death of all these people in her life, and just what she does within the whole satanic cult and this the mental illness she brings. So she tries to pass it on to her son, but her son kills himself because he's schizophrenic, and he believes that his mother put all that into his head, whether we know or not that it was mental illness or was it the demon shit, we don't know. And then the one that it didn't get to that way was Toni Collette's character.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of gives in to it. She admits she had a son that she didn't want to have, but her mother kind of convinced her and eased her way into having her have a kid. And then she has another kid, which is completely taken from her and is raised by the grandmother. And Colette's character doesn't really, do anything beyond that. She kind of lives with that instead of, the way that it affected, the son of the grandmother, having him kill himself.
Yeah, I feel like the grandma is the one who is, like instilling most of the trauma into the family. Like, we don't know her past. We don't know what weird shit has gone on in her life before, but we can definitely see through just every member of her family. And then, like, we can just see how much trauma she's instilled on her family, even if you look at it like as they all have mental illness. So grandma had DID, dissociative identity disorder, and dementia near the end. Dad had psychotic depression and starved himself. Brother was schizophrenic and killed himself. And obviously Toni Collette has tons of anxiety, maybe a little depression. I don't know what else is going on with her, but very, very apparent she has anxiety. So I feel like a lot of that is kind of grandma's fault. I don't know. Like,
100%.
Yeah, because if you are looking at it as like a mental illness, then obviously it's like passed down from the parents. Because I think there have been studies, where mental illness is hereditary. But if you also look at it as maybe there's like no mental illness other than a lot of anxiety going on for very like real reasons. Like, if you just look at it as it's just weird demon shit, then grandma's DID could be like, oh, her other personality wasn't really like a personality, it was just she let demons inside. And then dementia, old age, and maybe she wasn't as demented as people thought. Like, maybe she was just still being weird with demonic shit.
Yeah.
And then brother may not have been schizophrenic. Like, he was probably right that grandma kept trying to put demons inside him. I don't know,
And then maybe that, that other personality, was what led her to be manipulated by the cult, and they were able to use her more easily, and it leads to, her passing on all these other things to her family, and basically setting up the whole story of, the satanic plot in this film. So it's rather interesting because there's, especially when you look at it through the lens of this film, having it be from women to women, from the grandmother to her daughter, from the mother to the daughter, and not a lot. Like I said, not a lot of films handle women in hysterics as well as these two movies handle it.
I feel like he handles grief just really well.
Yeah, it's there's absolute chills that go up my spine every single time that Toni Collette, when she finds out the daughter, had
Charlie,
died,
yeah.
and she's just there harrowing and screams and in crying that she wants to die. And it's like the way that it's not just performed by Collette, but the way that it's framed, the way that it's handled by Aster, it's quite interesting. It's not a lot of male directors get that right.
Yeah, I felt like that was portrayed really well, and that scene just always gets me too when you hear her finding the body in the car.
Yeah.
Even though you don't see anything and you just hear her wailing, like, I'm just like, oh my god. Like, I have chills thinking about it right now.
My hairs are standing up right now. My hairs are standing up from my face and my arms.
Yeah.
But
it's weird. I made my mom, my sister, like, watch this movie. They are not horror movie people at all. And like, they were watching it and my mom was like, why is she crying like that? And I'm like, well, some people aren't heartless. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
but
so
it's just kind of funny.
When I watched this, and I'm not gonna, this is not meant as being a call out to my cousin, but when we watched this, and when my cousin, her friend, and and my cousin's boyfriend, she when she saw that scene, she was like, dramatic much? And and her boyfriend goes, what the hell are you talking about? That's not dramatic. She just lost her daughter in the same week that she lost her mother.
Except even more traumatic because she found like the body. Like, I feel like when someone dies of an old age, like, yeah, it's sad, but you kind of saw it coming. You have a little bit of time to get prepared. So, and it's like the body isn't so decomposed. It looks more peaceful, but
Yeah.
poor Annie went out to a car. It was a normal day, was supposed to be a normal day, probably to get supplies for her miniatures, and then you just find your decapitated daughter
Yeah.
in the back seat. Like, that's horrifying. That's
Yeah.
something no one should
Yeah.
ever have to discover.
You really can't have funeral services for a what's it called, a decapitated body, man. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you go the whole open casket route, then yeah, you definitely can't do that.
Yeah,
But
no, I don't think no. I mean, hey guys, like no disrespect to how you guys handle funerals and all that for y'all, but like I would not have an open casket for somebody that got decapitated, at least in my family.
yeah, I'm really into like death culture. So like there's this mortician, Caitlin Doty. She has a series on YouTube called Ask a Mortician.
Mm-hmm.
And so she'll look at all the different ways that, death is handled in cultures and like
Mm-hmm.
just the open casket aspect. And so like after, getting really into her, I'm more into like just the like either cremation or like a natural burial where they just throw you right in the ground. They don't pump you up full of anything, just
Yeah.
throw me in the dirt.
Yeah. As I said, I
Yeah.
would like to. As I said, I would like for my ashes to be spread at the Teotihuacan, at the Temple of the Sun in Mexico. So
Oh, that's nice.
I want my ashes to be spread there. But yeah, what's it called? But yeah, no, I mean the whole, and it's quite it's not funny, but somebody posted a meme of Millie Shapiro and the poll, and they were like, Millie is 20 is me, and then the poll's 2020.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. I was like, sons of bitches. But it's quite interesting how each member of the family kind of maneuvers grief and loss in this. Annie is very much trying to stay focused on her work, but she's very, very anxious, and she kind of is still very depressed over the fact that she's lost her mother, and of course after she loses her daughter, it's even worse. Her anxiety goes up the roof, and she attends support groups before her daughter dies, but after that she doesn't. She finds a friend, but the friend seems to manipulate her grief to want to do this whole satanic ritual, and there's just a lot going on with Annie. The father is really, I mean, the what's it called? The husband is really just there. He's like, yeah,
I feel like he was trying to keep things
yeah,
together because Annie's going off the handle. Peter's scared to walk into the house every day because of the way his mom looks at him and blames him for what happened.
yeah,
And so I feel like his name's Steve. Yeah, Steve did his
yeah,
best, I think.
yeah.
And I
Well,
mean,
Steve's
like
also an
maybe he
ass.
didn't handle things amazingly, but he has a lot of shit going on too. So I feel for him.
Yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, I think Steve is a fucking ass sometimes too.
I love him.
No,
I feel like he was the only sane character.
sane. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Because,
sure,
okay,
but
when you're presented with all of this weird shit happening, he's the one who knows grandma's corpse has been dug up. He sees all the weird shit going on between Peter and his wife, and he's trying to keep everything together.
yeah.
But of course, his wife starts going on about demon shit. Like, how would you react? I
But
would
also,
probably react the same way Steve did, where he's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
yeah, but also
Demons
like,
aren't real.
yeah, but also like he doesn't have like a big presence in there where he tries to console Annie. I mean, he's kind of just like letting her go on her own way instead of being like like, I'm here if you need to talk or anything. It's
I
like,
mean, I feel like he did try. There's scenes where he reaches out to touch her. He's making dinner, like he's taking care of things. She's the one who's pulling away also.
all
So
right,
like I feel like I don't know. He just seems kind of quiet to me. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't seem like the type who would like go through huge leaps and bounds, and Annie doesn't seem like the type of person who would want that, since she's always
Yeah.
pulling away every time he
Mhm.
tries to comfort her. you know?
And then of course there is Peter, who was played by Alex Wolff. He is very much just into the drug, what's it called, marijuana, and that seems to
Need
be the
an
way.
ass.
Eating it. What's it called? What was that text in there? Bring that dick or something like. I was like,
Yeah, bring your dick.
what the hell, man? But yeah, he's into what's it called? Again, trying to get laid and smoking weed. Pretty
He's
much
just a
just
normal teenage boy.
teenage boy shit. Teenage boy shit. And then of course there's Charlie, the daughter, who the fuck knows what she's trying to. She's just sad that her grandmother died. She wants her grandmother back. But also, there seems to be some connection between her and the fucking spiritual world, at least.
Yeah, I think for sure she's always had that kind of connection, and maybe
Mhm.
grandma was the one who helped steer her in that direction. And I always wonder just how much she knows what's going to happen. You know, like it seems like there is some kind of knowledge, whether it's unconscious or not, that she is kind of, King Payman.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree. I 100% agree with you, dude. But yeah, it's quite interesting how all of them kind of maneuver their grief and loss. Of course, the one that the one that gets to it to the most is of course Annie. Annie's the one that can't really handle it that well, while everybody else is kind of trying to get through it. But once the
I feel like Peter didn't handle it very well either, but
no,
he has every right to not handle it very well.
yeah, but once, as you can tell, that once you see how at least the mom in the family starts to kind of show signs that she's not doing really well. Everything else kind of starts to crumble beneath the foundation of the household. You know,
Mhm.
the father, what's it called? The husband starts to worry. Peter starts to what's it called? Worry too, and it really kind of brings in the mom kind of bonding everybody together. And if she's not doing all right, then of course Peter and Steve weren't going to be being able to follow.
Mhm. Yeah.
hmm So yeah, that's I wanted to bring that up as well, and that kind of covers the loss as well. But it's quite interesting because Aster does approach this as wanting to be a family drama, not more of a horror film, even though it is a horror film. But he said that he mostly wanted to make a family drama, and then in Midsummer he says he wants to make he wanted to make a relationship film, and
A
yeah,
breakup movie.
breakup movie. Yep. And this is 100% a family drama. I mean, that whole kitchen scene, I mean, the dinner scene, that's 100% there. It's like, that's one of my favorite scenes in this movie. It's probably one of the
Oh,
greatest
so
acted.
good.
Oh, fuck, man.
So good.
Yeah, how Colette wasn't
Yeah.
nominated for this is absolutely bonkers. This was 100% a Best Actress nomination. I mean, she was on fire the whole time.
I love her. I like the whole reason I watched this movie was because of her. Like it sounded interesting, but then I started hearing bad reviews about it and I was like, "Oh, maybe it won't be that good." But I would die for Toni Collette, so I'm going to
hmm
go sit my ass in this theater and watch it, and absolutely worth it.
You want to bring up some more stuff about the mental illness because we'll be going into commercial break in a bit, but you want to bring up any other stuff?
I do just kind of want to talk about the way Peter handles the whole, Charlie dying situation. Because a lot of times when I show this movie to people, they're very, very quick to like blame Peter for the way he behaves at the party. And to an extent, like, yeah, maybe he shouldn't have left his sister alone at this party. Um, but he's also like, I feel like people ignore the fact that he's a teenage boy
Mm-hmm.
who can't think very well. He's high as shit. And like teenagers can't make good decisions even while sober half the time. So I don't know. The way that he, after the accident, how he just drives back home and crawls back in bed, like a lot of people are just like I watch it with them, they're just like, why would he do that? Why wouldn't he call somebody? Why wouldn't he do any of this? But it's like I don't I don't think unless any of us have been through that we can actually sit there and be like, "Oh, he should have done it this way," because
Yeah.
you don't know how you'd react in that situation, especially high, panicking, and with teenage brain cells. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like I feel like people are a little too hard on Peter
Yeah.
just throughout this whole thing,
Another
you
thing that
know?
people kind of bring up with Peter, mostly Alex Wolff's performance, which I think it's excellent. They always bring up the cry that he has, and it's like,
Mhm.
how it's kind of like, it's like, wow, it's a little bit too exaggerated. It sounds like he's being a little kid, and it's like, he's a teenager. He's really
Mhm.
scared about what's going on, and he's kind of
Mhm.
tapping into that primal, you know, childlike fear that comes out. So that cry gives me chills. It doesn't annoy me. I think that cry, it really does scare me. I'm like, you do actually have a kid who's actually really fucking afraid right now. Like, he has no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people who go there are just kinda I don't know, I think it's, like, ingrained in us as we grow older that, like, boys shouldn't really cry, you know? And so, like, I
Hmm.
think when people are like, "Ew, what the fuck? Why is Peter crying? Why does he cry like that?" It's just, like, a lot of unconscious thoughts about, "Oh, boys shouldn't be crying," and
Yeah.
they've obviously never heard a teenage boy cry because they sound just like that. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That's how they
Yeah,
sound.
that's literally how they sound, guys.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the fuck, man? That's how teenagers cry. Uh,
Yeah. So to me, I think that's like a societal thing where you're like, "Oh, no, boys shouldn't cry. Boys should be manly. Boys should be strong," you know?
yeah. And yeah, it's really interesting because what's called, when he comes back from the whole accident, and he's just there laying down, and we have that shot with him just there, and as it turns from night to day, and he doesn't
Mhm.
cry there, but he
But
doesn't ever
yeah, he's in
cry.
shock.
Yeah, he's in major shock. He doesn't ever cry about the death, but he cries over the fear of what's going on with their mom, and what's going on around the house, and what's going on with him, because he has no idea what's going on. But it's interesting because you never see him cry about the grandma. You never see him cry about Charlie. He's just really he's sad, he's down, but he's never crying. But once the fear comes creeping in, he starts crying with that, and you get that very primal type of cry from him.
Yeah, you can definitely tell he tries to keep it together, but
Hmm.
like that scene in school where he's just smoking weed with his friends, like the paranoia creeps in
Hmm.
and he just fucking loses it, which I can relate to. Weed makes me really paranoid, but
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, I used to have panic attacks whenever I would smoke weed, so I can't really do it anymore.
Yeah. No, it happens. It happens. But yeah, it's that's the only other time, other than when it's around the family, that he cries. But that's because he's having a fucking panic attack, dude. The kid's having one. And I mean,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would too in that situation, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. So I don't really understand when people are like, oh fuck, it's like, this kid's so annoying. This kid's being like, it's like, it's a fucking teenager, dude.
I really just don't think people have a whole lot of empathy for kids and what they go through
Yeah,
or like fully understand like children's psychology,
yeah.
I guess. You know, because he is
Especially,
still a child. Like, yeah, he's a
mhm,
teenager. He looks grown up, but he's still a kid.
yeah. Especially a kid who was responsible for, what's it called, his daughter dying. I mean, his daughter dying.
His
His
sister.
sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, his sister dying. And
Yeah, and I feel like you're gonna have a lot of trauma in that situation. Like, I'm
yeah.
sure some people out there can relate in a way. Like, I'm sure they've been in accidents with their siblings or,
Uh-huh.
something like that. So having the weight of that on you, like, is this was my fault? Like, I did this, you know,
Hmm. For sure.
it's
But
heavy.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it is heavy stuff, man. It is. And but that that does go into the whole trauma aspect of this film, and it's
Yeah,
it's 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 quite it's quite the ride. But yeah,
it
that
really is.
fucking sure as hell is. But when we come back from commercial break, we'll be continuing our discussion on 2018's Hereditary. But in the meantime, please listen to these wonderful commercials that are created by different people on the podcast feed, on the Nerdcore podcast feed, the Nerdcore Podcast Network. So we'll be back right after these advertisements. Hey, I'm Raul Leandro Mendoza, and this is
Jabril Newton.
and we are the hosts of High Flyer Radio. And finally, pro wrestling has come back to the Nerdcore podcast feed in the form of a show hosted by Jabril and I. And we talk about everything and anything in the pro wrestling world on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nothing's off limits. Whatever you guys want to talk about, it is from AEW to SmackDown to Raw to NXT. Nothing's off the table. We can talk about it.
We're going to talk all about it. And if you can get it a day early, you should go to the www.patreon.com/thenerdcore and pledge to the tiers on there so you can get this show and a lot of shows days early before anybody else gets to hear it. But enough talking about it. We'll go ahead and see you there at the Squared Circle. Oh, yeah. Don't tap out. Tune in.
Hey, it's Ashley from the Gamer Corps. You may remember me from such episodes as Big Screen Mess, Mo Money Mo Platforms, and Brad Can Read. Tune in weekly as I blab with my co-hosts Raul the Nerdy Chicano and Brad the Random Germ about the latest news in gaming and gush over what we're playing at the moment. Oh yeah, and we got the deals too. Keep up with the latest deals in gaming and what's happening as I mediate Brad and Raul fighting like a married couple. Will Death Stranding ever come out? Will Cyberpunk 2077 live up to the hype? Is a next-gen worth a $500 console price tag? And has there ever been a movie adaptation of a video game that's been done right? It's all on the Gamer Corps podcast, everywhere where podcasts are.
Hey everyone, my name is Raul, the Nerdy Chicano, and I am the host of The Impaired Files. The Impaired Files is an interview show brought to you every Thursday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. And I interview people such as filmmakers, content creators on YouTube, and podcasters like Colton Geschwander. And if you want to listen to that early, a whole week early, all you got to do is go to the Patreon and pledge to the $1 tier. And if you want to listen to it with the general public, then go to the Nerdcore podcast feed on anchor.fm/thenerdcore. And the case is closed, but it's not classified. See you guys there.
Hey guys, this is Brad, aka Young Yoda. Raul said I had to make an ad, so that's what I'm doing. It's supposed to be for Unstructured, but as you guys know, you can freaking catch me everywhere when it comes to this podcast feed. You can find me on the Nerd Cores, on Gamer Cores, on Nerdy Chicanos sometimes when I get lost. But for this particular one, I want you guys to go check out Unstructured. The Raul gave me free reign to do whatever I want to do. I don't know what he was thinking. So go hear me talk about LeBron James and Taco Tuesday, vaping, so many other freaking weird topics that chimichangas, that's a good one. Shout out to Deadpool. And yeah, I guess this is the end of the ad. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me all over the place on this podcast feed. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. And nerd up.
Hello, 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 guys and gals, and you're listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore. I am your host, Daniela Nunez, and along with my amazing co-host, Ashley Garcia, we discuss many things like social impact, pop culture, political realms, and any controversy surrounding the Nerdverse. Tune in and listen to us bi-weekly on the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we will love to chat and hear your thoughts on our wonderful show. And thank you again for listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore.
What's up, everybody? It is me, Raul, and I'm one of the hosts of the Nerdy Chicano Show. The Nerdy Chicano Show is a comedic show brought to you by Luis and myself, and it comes to you all every Sunday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. You can catch it a day early by becoming a Patreon and supporting us at the $1 tier. And I don't really know how to explain this show other than it's fun. We get to talk about whatever we want, and it helps you move on in the week. So if you want to catch the Nerdy Chicano Show every Sunday at 8 a.m. All you got to do is go to anchor.fm/thenerdcore, and we'll see you there, baby. Hey, everyone, I'm Raul.
And I'm Brad.
And we're the hosts of the Nerdcore Podcast, the podcast that talks that nerd. Not on this ad, right?
Not
and
on this one.
We come to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. On the Mondays, we talk the news. That's the box office, the news of the week, and your trailer talk if there is any. And on Tuesday, we have our theme review. And on Saturday, you have a Saturday morning review, usually movies that have come out in the week or anything we want to talk about. Right, Brett?
Exactly. Whatever we want to talk about, this is our show. If you don't like it, then you don't have to listen.
We're the flagship show of the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we can be found everywhere you can listen to podcasts like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to talk that nerd stuff with us every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, make sure you tune in. And Brad?
Young Yoda out.
Welcome back to the Cinema Condition. As always, I want to thank you all for listening to those commercial breaks. and I really do appreciate it. They're made by some really wonderful people who make podcasts on this network. Of course, right now, the only podcasts that are active on the network, because we are literally in a full-scale pandemic, are the Nerdcore Live Show and the Nerdcore and this show. But don't worry, we're trying to get back on track, but I'm also not forcing anybody to do anything right now that they don't feel like they need to be doing because of the pandemic. So no worries on that. But if you want to go to anchor.fm/nerdcore to listen to those shows, of course, you get this show is also available on there, but it's more like a rerun. So you guys are, if you're following along on the Nerdcore podcast feed, you're really behind on these episodes. Like, this is where you should be listening. This 100% should be where you're listening because you're really behind. But no worries. Go to that podcast feed, leave a rating review on the podcast, on the Apple Podcast page, please. It helps the show get found. The shows get found easier. Be found easier. Fuck, I can't English today, motherfuckers. I can't.
That's okay. It's hard.
Yeah, I know. That's what happens when Spanish is not your first language. Spanish is your first language. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that. And we're back discussing Ari Aster's Hereditary with Leah Byrnes. And we're going to go ahead and continue on this conversation and see where we finish off. But yeah, Leah, you said you wanted to bring up about free will.
Yep. Free will and determinism. So one thing that I think is interesting whenever watching movies and there's like a classroom scene is you listen to literally everything going on in the classroom because usually that's your outline for a lot of the themes in the movie, which is kind of one of my favorite tropes, just like picking up little things out of the classroom and then applying it throughout the whole thing because I'm a nerd. But
yeah.
So the thing that they're talking about in the very first classroom scene that Peter's in is they're talking about Heracles and whether he had any choice or not in what happened to him or whether everything was fated. And so I think it's interesting to look through this movie and like see if any of the characters have free will at all, like, or, you know, was everything handed to them through fate or through biology? Like, did they have any decisions? Like, could they actually make free decisions at all? You know?
100%.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that they kind of discuss that because you're like, you kind of go back to the root of what our, basically our scholarly, discussions are always rooted in, and it's back to ancient Greece, and they're kind of discussing that. And then I believe the next thing that they talk about in the classroom was the economic collapse in the late 20s and in the early 30s, and but for you to start with, Heracles and all that stuff, you're like, wow, damn, okay.
Yeah, and like I think it's interesting that like once the discussion starts, so like I think one of the first thing the teacher says is he's trying to get the kids to discuss Heracles' fatal flaw, and as he's talking about that, all we're seeing is a close-up on like Bridget's ass because Peter's staring at it, and so it's kind of funny in like the sense where you're like, all right, Peter's fatal flaw is he's just trying to get some ass.
Yeah.
And that's all he's focused on is because he's just a teenage boy, right? So he's like, I'm just here to smoke weed and get pussy, basically.
Yeah. It's like,
so
this
he's
is the guy who's
seeing
supposed to
everything else that's going on around him, which is something like, one of the other kids brings up because they're like, is it less tragic if Heracles had a choice in what happened to him, or is it more tragic? And the kid's response is something along the lines of, well, I think it's more tragic because he like ignores all the signs that are being handed to him the whole time. So he had no choice in fixing it. So I think that's interesting to look at when looking at Peter, is because you're like, okay, did he have these choices, or because of his biology, which is, focusing him on weed and ass, like, did it blind him to everything else in his life? Like, was he always fated to make those decisions just based off of his biological needs or like the way he's raised in his environment or, demon shit.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like the fatal flaw, him being just wanting to be a teenage boy, but it's like this is supposed to be the guy who's gonna be the inherent host for King Payman, and his fatal flaw is that he's just a teenage boy who wants ass, not ads. He wants ass and he wants to smoke weed all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think just a lot of what I've been thinking about most when doing this rewatch, it's not something I really thought about a lot, is just, did they have free will? Do any of us have free will, or are we all just slaves to our biology and environment,
Yeah.
And so like you can say they had free will, or you can go with like hard determinism, whereas they didn't have a choice whatsoever, just based off of all of those factors.
Yeah.
Or you can do like the middle ground with like soft determinism, where you're like, well, you can have a choice, but most of your behavior will be subject to some sort of biological or environmental pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think it's fun to look at the movie like this. So what do you think?
I think it's a mix. Of course, it was always determined for Annie to be the host, but it didn't work out. So I think that they just decided, you know what? I think in the first half, they're like, yep, it's gonna have to be Annie, and then the second half of the film, they're like, Annie is too unstable. This can't happen. It's gonna have to be, Peter. So I think in a way it is determined, but as well there is a bit of free will. But I mean, if you look at it through the lens of the film, what's it called? Peter getting in that car, having to take his having to take his sister to the party, not having the EpiPen on him. Also just that blue strobe of light, like there has to be some form of determinism in here at one point. Like
Exactly.
It can't all just be free will, because if it was free will, Peter would have just said, "Fuck it, don't just go back inside. I don't give a shit what mom says. I want to go get ass and smoke weed, and god damn it, I'm gonna get it that way."
Yeah, I feel like there are maybe some elements of free will in a sense, but I think for most of this movie, it definitely is determined in some way. And I think you see that a lot, like in the beginning when Charlie is talking to her mom about how grandma wanted her to be a boy, and she mentions to her mom, like, what's going to happen when you die? Like, she's not saying, like, if you die, like, if I were to lose you. She's like, when you die, what's going to happen to me? Which kind of, like, leads me to believe that Charlie had some sort of unconscious knowledge about what's going on, probably because her grandma has been, preparing her to be the host, even though, like, she wanted Charlie to be a boy. But I feel like you could see that a lot in like the ways that Charlie was always meant to be the host through Charlie's art, and through like the like little snippets you get where like they're going to the party and you see that like symbol on the post that ultimately like beheads her in the end. Like I feel like it was all carefully planned by this demonic cult to have it end the way it did, and they got there. I don't know if like some things were messed up along the way because of some sort of free elements or free will, but like ultimately they got there in the end. Like it was determined that it was to be this way, and it happened.
I think another instance of that is when of course the famous book burning scene. So she tries to burn it at first, it starts to light her on fire, kind of saying like, okay, maybe they actually don't need me now. I think I might have to die. But then after all this, she's finding out, she's like, okay, well, if Peter needs to be saved, I need to be the one to kill myself. But then it's kind of like with Steve getting burned, it's kind of, I think it's Payman, or what's it called, the grandmother, kind of be like, no. We still need you. You cannot die. You were determined to be somehow included in this, so we're not going to kill you. We're going to kill Peter. And then, of course, the famous book burning scene. So you know she tries to burn it at first, it starts to light her on fire, kind of saying like, okay, maybe they actually don't need me now. I think I might have to die. But then it's kind of like with Steve getting burned, it's kind of, I think it's Payman, or what's it called, the grandmother, kind of be like, no. We still need you. You cannot die. You were determined to be somehow included in this, so we're not going to kill you. we're gonna kill the Steve.
Yeah, and so like I think that light that we see is Payman because Payman has like the power to show visions, manipulate human thoughts, and his powers are like making spirits appear, which can be like the light that we see, you know, because they can be like little servant spirits, or it could just, be him, and that's just how he's floating around because we see it when Charlie's up in her room making art and we see the light go to the window, and that's how she goes out to like find those weird creepy naked people in the woods burning shit, and that's what upsets mom, and she's like, go to fuck to this party. Like I feel like everything was carefully put in order, and yeah, I think that was definitely Payman like entering Annie at one point too, but I don't think Annie was ever meant to be, the host. Like it was always meant to be Charlie and Annie's brother before Charlie, but Annie's brother severed that when he killed himself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So that just kind of of course, there's also another that's done. Is that it for the free will stuff, or do you want to? Is there anything another example?
I think that's it. I think I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was like, there's another example. I'm not, and I'm trying to think of another one, but no, I do agree that kind of everything is kind of perfectly planned to kind of lead up to that ending, which is really weird when I hear people saying like, "Oh, that ending really came out of nowhere. Like it doesn't make sense."
I know.
It's like, motherfucker, you haven't been paying attention.
I mean, definitely the first time I watched it, like I wasn't expecting some weird like King Payman demon shit right at the end. I was like, weird paranormal things are happening. Like obviously it's some sort of demonic activity, but like I didn't know to the full extent the way things were rolling until like I finished watching it. And then like at first I was like, what the fuck? But then I started thinking back about how everything was put together, and I was like, holy shit, and like had this whole big epiphany of like everything I'd missed, and I was like,
Yeah.
I can't wait to rewatch this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
the other part that I kind of want to discuss is really the way that Annie she uses her trauma to kind of influence the art. Of course, she makes miniatures of her mother. There's that memory of Annie breastfeeding Charlie, and then the grandmother's in there.
Trying to breastfeed too.
Trying to breastfeed too, which is really fucking weird. And then there's of course the scene of the of what's it called, of Charlie's murder that she uses, and then really when everything kind of comes to that climactic part where Annie can't really take it anymore, she destroys her stuff because the trauma is too much to endure, and you really are seeing the way that kind of. Yes, it's kind of what has always been said, is that what happens in our lives, it really does influence, especially on the artistic side, what we write, what we create, and all that stuff. So in a way, of course, it would influence Annie to kind of be doing this. So if it is her way to release her anxieties, or if it's her way to kind of cope with it, then of course their trauma would be influencing the art in here.
Yeah, I think that scene where she's making like the reenactment of the accident, like I was like, girl, like I was kind of with the dad on that at first, and I'm like, that's really fucking insensitive, like if Peter walked in and saw that, but like I know that's also her way to like process what happened and try to piece together what happened, to make sense of it. But
yeah. Yep. And I was like, first of all, when he said that, I was like, I haven't seen the kid even look in the direction of the workshop. What the fuck are you talking about?
I mean, it's in the same hallway as his room, though, so I'm just kind of like,
yeah,
it could be bad.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the way that she maneuvers her grief, and the way that it helps her. So like we think about other people who like, okay, listening to music helps me kind of cope with these feelings, or watching movies, or writing poetry, or writing scripts, or whatever. Like it's just all of it kind of the way that trauma works hand in hand with art. And you really do see it in here, because of course this film really at the what's it called, at the center of it, this is a film about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's get into the spooky stuff, and let's go ahead and finish up with that. We're gonna go ahead and have
All
a
right.
conversation on the good old demon lore here. There's a lot of
Well,
extensive.
I think a good way to get into the demon lore from what you were just talking about would just be to transition to Charlie's art, because all of Charlie's art is just, you know, it's weird, creepy shit. Like obviously she's like a middle schooler, so you know, her drawings aren't the best, but when you look at her art, like she makes those little bottle figures where she'll have like a pill bottle or like a little ink bottle or just any sort of little glass bottle, and she'll attach arms to them with wires and like little feet with wires and erasers or whatever the fuck, you know. And you see that art come into play with setting up a lot of the demonic themes in the movie. So like the decapitated pigeon head, like when she just cuts that pigeon's heads off and sticks it on that toy, it comes back later when Annie like runs to Joan's like apartment once she figures everything out, and she's like, oh, they're trying to hurt my kid. And you see like a shot of Joan's table that's kind of been transformed into some sort of altar where, you know, there's like Peter's like picture like in the center of the table with like crossed out eyes and stuff. But then you see Charlie's art that obviously someone had went in and like stolen Charlie's art from her room or something for this altar, but it's that same pigeon head figure standing up like in the center of this altar, and then you have several like headless bottle people bowed down like right in front of it, and that like sets you up for the end where you have like that Payman effigy and the headless corpses of Grandma and Annie like bowing down to it. And the like effigy is like Charlie's head just stuck on that wooden figure with a crown on it, just like the pigeon drawing. So that's why part of me also wonders how much like Charlie knew about it, because obviously she must have had some sort of vision in the sense that she made these things that happen ultimately, you know.
To an extent, I think that she was I think she was. I think probably one of the only things that she didn't know was the death that she was gonna die. But I think she kind of was kind of cognizant of everything that was gonna go down.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so that's some fun stuff with Charlie's art. Is if you pay attention to it, you can see it, and it'll help you just kind of make more sense of the ending there, which is fun.
Speaking of Charlie's death, I wanted to read this part here and then let you go back to it. But
okay.
It's reflected of a real life incident in 2005 in Marietta, Georgia, in which, scroll to the side, please, John Kemper Hutcherson accidentally decapitated his childhood friend and passenger, Frankie Brom, on a telephone pole after the latter had leaned his head from the vehicle to relieve the symptoms of his inebriation. Hutcherson then drove home with Brom's headless corpse in the car and fell asleep until a passerby walking with his toddler noticed Brom's body still in the truck the next morning and notified authorities.
Jesus.
Fucking crazy.
That is so crazy. That scene like fucking haunted me the first time I saw it, because like in the theaters, that thunk of her being decapitated was so fucking loud.
Yeah.
Just like curled up in like a little ball and just had to sit like that for the rest of the movie. I was like, that's disturbing.
Another fascinating fun fact. Aster said that during filming, Alex Wolff told me not to say the name of the William Shakespeare Scottish play out loud because of some superstitious theater legend. I smugly announced the name, and then one of the lights burst during the shooting of the following scene.
That's fun.
That's actually really funny.
Yeah, especially when they're like doing demon shit. They're like, oh no, they're here. The demons.
Hey, demons. It's your boy.
It's Payman.
It's Payman. What's going on? But just go back to the demon stuff. I wanted to bring up that stuff because it's quite interesting fun facts about this.
Oh yeah. It's really cool. So like obviously I didn't know a lot about King Payman the first time I saw this. Like I had never heard of King Payman until this movie. So I went in like a deep dive of King Payman lore. So like King Payman, he's first mentioned in Crowley's Grimoire of Demonology, the Goetia, the Lesser Keys of Solomon. And basically that book is just like a giant Pokedex of demons, right? So you learn about the demons and how to summon them, what they do,
Pokédex
all
of
that
demons.
fun shit. Yeah, and so like in the Goetia, it's like specified that Payman can provide knowledge of arts and sciences, which is cool when you think about how art is like, you know, woven into this movie too. So his knowledge includes all arts, secret things such as knowledge regarding the earth, the water, the winds, and he will answer all questions asked of him because he knows all of the affairs of the world and he can reveal hidden treasures, which we see is what the demon cult wants the most, is just kind of money. um but I guess they do want a little bit of knowledge too. In the demon text Abramelin, King Payman, his powers include knowledge of past and future events, which is interesting when thinking about how much did Charlie know, since she's always been meant for King Payman's host. Clearing up doubts, making spirits appear, creating visions, acquiring and dismissing spirit servants, reanimating the dead for several years, flight, which we see, remaining underwater indefinitely, which I think is the coolest power, and that should have been in the movie somehow. General abilities to make all things, all sorts of people in armor appear at the behest of a magician. So I think that's really cool. He can manipulate human thoughts and show visions to humans. He has 200 legions of demons under his rule, which is pretty cool. He's very loyal to Lucifer. And he's very effeminate looking. So he's described as manifesting as a man having a woman's face. And in the movie, when she's reading about Payman, if you pause it and just read that whole page there, you'll see in that page that it talks about how, like, yeah, he's effeminate, but he covets a male body. He'll get mad if you offer him a female body, which I think is why, you know, when he's in Toni Collette's character Annie, like shit just gets really weird with like the sawing off the head and, you know, thunking the face up against the ground, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. He rides a dromedary, which is that Arabian camel, and you see that in the movie too, in the little drawing when she's reading about King Payman. He's riding a camel, and he has like that weird wooden staff that has like the hand on the end. And you can notice when he's sitting there on his camel, he has 3 decapitated heads just like tied up on the camel,
Fucking
which
brutal.
is pretty cool. Yeah, you can just see that right in the movie. It's cool stuff. And I think the reason for like the decapitations is here. There's like 3 different texts that mention it. It's the Goetia, the Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonum, and Dictionnaire Infernal. They warn that if King Payman has to appear alone, then a sacrifice must be made for Bebal and Abalam, which are 2 kings who serve under him, but they don't always accompany him. So I think that's interesting that, you know, like the sacrifices aren't really for him; they're for his lackeys. Let's see, what else? Oh, his entrance is preceded by a host of spirits who play trumpets, cymbals, and other diverse instruments, and you can hear that in a lot of the music in the movie, especially in the end, like how discordant that music is when they're up in the treehouse and like the ending's revealed. Yeah. That shit, like that's King Payman shit. Like they weren't just doing that to be a little spooky. Like it's King Payman shit. He's connected to the Tree of Death, which I think is really interesting that it ends in the treehouse and that Charlie's always sleeping in that treehouse, even when it's, you know, cold as shit and she really shouldn't be doing that. I read some stuff from like demonologists like and diviners and witches because I wanted to see what their thoughts were on the movie. Like, obviously, like, I'm not into this shit, but a lot of these people like actually believe in it, so I thought it'd be cool to hear what they thought. So there's a guy, Dr. Alexander Cummins. He's a historian, but also a diviner. He says summoning Payman would be a really difficult process. So you may have to do some demon managing, because Payman is listed as one of the 4 kings of hell in earlier grimoires, but in the movie they talk about him being like one of the 8 kings of hell.
Yeah.
But Dr. Alexander says that in order to get to King Payman, you would have to appeal to the correct order of demons first to ensure that like they will actually obey you. So he says this type of conjuration of spirits can involve a potentially complex navigation of the bureaucracies of hell, compelling lesser spirits to do one's bidding by resorting to the names of their superiors, which I think can be pretty interesting if you think about how
Yeah.
Annie's brother died, because he's like, grandma kept putting people inside me, you know?
Yeah. Grandma
So that
obviously
could have
didn't.
been part of the process.
Yeah. Grandma obviously didn't know who to go to first, so she thought that she could just go straight to Payman. But no,
Yeah.
you have to go to Jim next, and then to Paul second, and then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Then you'll work your way up to Payman.
the Payman. Yeah.
So it says all the demons in the Goetia, the only one it says you have to have an offering for is Payman. So the offering that they give him, you know, Hereditary, was the physical body and like the decapitated corpses, you know.
Mhm.
So I was looking at, let's see, occult expert Mary Bargus. She says that symbolically, in taking off one's head, you're surrendering your ego. So what's left is your heart. So like the decapitation symbolizes detachment from ego that leads to deification and sacrifice.
Mhm.
So like you see that a lot in the East, like in Hinduism with decapitation. And so like in the East, decapitation is similar to crucifixion, because if you're suffering for others, it'll turn you into a god. So I thought that was a really interesting way to look at decapitations too.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yes.
that's a lot of the demon shit. Apparently witches are still torn on whether or not King Payman is accurately depicted, but I think it's pretty clear that they did their research, because while consulting what I could from like demon texts, like I've seen a lot of what was in there
Mhm.
shown in the film.
Yeah. I mean, it just shows how fucking prepared. And it's just because Colette was like, I've never. She said she had never worked with a director that was as prepared as Aster. So it just shows like he did his research.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I guess like one other demon thing I forgot to do. So like all those weird inscriptions like on the walls. So there'd be like Satany and Zazis and Liftoch Pandemonium.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like if you pay attention to those and look those up too. So like Satany is part of a ritual of necromancy. It's a word of power to command the dead and like bring back a spirit to the world.
Mhm.
So Satany, I think that one was written in Charlie's room, which makes sense for, bringing her spirit
Yeah.
back. Zazis, I can't remember where that one was written. But so like this comes from like Aleister Crowley, the guy who wrote the Goetia. He has like a story where he's just hanging out with a buddy, summoning demons, something normal dude bros just do in their free time. And they were invoking a demon named Choronzon. And part of like the thing to like summon him is you have to say Zazis like a couple times. And so he like did that, and that's how they got their buddy Choronzon, I guess. So I think it's just some sort of, demon summoning word, which makes sense. I also I used to like play with Ouija boards a lot when I was younger. And I remember like my friends and I were like kind of creeped out because like I didn't fully understand like the science behind Ouija boards at the time. It was like my first time using one. So we were Googling like why is my Ouija board moving? You know, like dumb shit like that. And we found like something about some demon named like Zazus. Like there was this whole story about how they summoned some demon named Zazus or something, and it like haunted them and like destroyed their lives or whatever. And we're like, oh,
Mhm.
neat. So I always think of that. I'm like, oh yeah, Ouija board days, good shit.
Yeah.
And then the last one is just Lift Ouch Pandemonium, which is the last one you see pop up near like the end of the film, and that just means open up for the demons. So it's just a right to invoke demons, which makes sense.
Yep. All right. With that, is that it? Is that it for the?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there was a lot of demon shit, but we got it.
All right. With that being said, that is the end of our conversation on Hereditary 2018. And as always, I mean, Leah, we didn't get to talk about castration anxiety today, but it was a lot of fun having you on.
I mean, beheading, castration anxiety, same thing.
You're reaching real hard, girl. Don't worry.
It's there. I know it's there.
Well, Leia will be coming back. Leia will be coming back. I always forgot. It's not Leia. It's Leah, right? Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Well-
doesn't matter to me though.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Leia will be returning for Midsummer in 2 weeks. But I want to thank you so much for coming on. I mean, it's always fun when I bring you on.
Yeah. Dream team.
Dream team, right? It's dream team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody else can do what we do here. Nobody else brings out castration anxiety.
I will mention it every time. I
Yeah.
guarantee it.
But yes, thank you so much for coming on. And as always, can you let the people know where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter and now Twitch at Lumpy Space Bitch, but the I in bitch is a 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm on Twitch now streaming. I'm doing variety games, but you'll see me playing a lot of Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, dating simulators like Dream Daddy and How to Full Boyfriend, and right now we're doing Night in the Woods.
I love that you still do the Dream Daddy one. That's funny as shit.
It's great.
Yeah.
They're so cute.
Yeah. And as always, I want to thank anybody for who's listening to this. As always, you know you can leave a rating review on your podcast app of choice, mainly Apple Podcasts and Stitcher, please, guys. And go ahead and follow Leia where she told you guys to follow her. And I want to thank you all so much for supporting this show and really the first season, because we're going to be doing more episodes as the season ends. We'll be taking a break and then we come back for the second season. But I want to thank you all so much. This was awesome, and we this was such a fun time getting to discuss one of my favorite horror movies, one of my favorite directorial debuts. So, as always, you can find me at the Nerdy Chicano on both Instagram and Twitter, and thenerdcore.com. I'm slowly getting through all my 75 films from Asia reviews that I hadn't written yet. I'm at 7 out of 11 right now, so I need 4 more, and I'm gonna be done with them, and then I have to finish watching the other movies. But I'm also going to be doing video reviews on my YouTube channel, so you can go find my YouTube. Just search up Raul Alejandro Mendoza. You're going to find a lot of Mexicans, but you're gonna know which one I am. So you'll be able to recognize me. But as always, I do host the shows like Nerdcore Live Show, Nerdcore. We're going to be doing our Christopher Nolan month next on there, so you guys can go check me out on there. And as always, on every weekend on the Nerdcore Live Show to talk nonsense and raise money for charities that need it right now. So we've been doing that. And of course, Leia is not the last time she'll be here, but we'll see her in 2 weeks. But in the meantime, I want to say I really have an outro. And I just remind you guys that life is about filling it with more beautiful art and great art. So watch a movie tonight, and we will, I will see you on the next one when we discuss Blade Runner with Julia. And I'm hoping that's the case, because if it's not, then it's going to be Leia again for Midsummer. But all right. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you on the next one.